Headmistress Press was really the brainchild of Mary Merriam, who has run Lavender Review online since 2010. And yes, and she invited me to join her right at the beginning in 2013. And since then, we've just done a lot of different projects, this being our most recent one. The trading cards came on with Rita Mae Reese, who designs them. And it was, you know, it was another brainchild because it's really been very important to the press to have them and to have made the acquaintance of all the trading card poets that we've met. And that generated the opportunity to have a program of our trading card poets, which is the Collectibles. I'll also just say that for our first open mic, for this first Collectibles program, I invited our own authors to sign up, first come, first serve. And so you'll be hearing from Headmistress Press writers, authors today when we get to the open mic. And I just want to say, V, that I love you and I love your work, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Risa and Mary and Headmistress Press for creating this platform for us to be together today, and for all the readings upcoming. Well, as Risa said, what is not to love about Vicky now? Your work is extraordinary. I've loved listening to the videos that I've been able to see. That Rum and Rice poem is incredible. And it's my pleasure to introduce Vicky now, card number 49. Vicky, V was born in 1979 in Long Con, Vietnam. She often craves Bun Ryu and So Ku, but they are very time consuming to make, she says. She lives, the card says she lives in Iowa, sort of, but she's actually coming to us from somewhere else today. She'll share that. She's a prolific writer working in poetry, fiction, film, and cross-genre collaborations. Her books in various genres include Sheep Machine from 2018, Umbilical Hospital from 2017, A Brief Alphabet of Torture 2016, which won Fiction Collective 2's Ronald Sukanik's Innovative Fiction Prize, Fish in Exile 2016, and The Old Philosopher in 2014, which won the Night Boat Books Prize for Poetry. These stories, poems, and drawings have appeared in Noon, Plowshares, Poetry, Black Warrior Review, and Bomb. She holds an MFA in fiction from Brown University, where she was awarded prizes in fiction and poetry. Kazim Ali wrote that the work of Vicky now feels so necessary, so intense, so immediately now. About her own work, V says, I love and I try to condition the materiality of humanity's mundane emotions so they align homosexuality with my love affair with tenderness. Would you please join me in welcoming the anything but mundane, the extraordinary Vicky now.
Thank you, Sandy, for that beautiful introduction. Thank you, Mary and Risa, for having us. And I noticed Gillian is here. Congratulations on such a beautiful chapbook.
Thank you so much.
It was such a pleasure to read your work. And hello to everyone here. Thank you for coming. It's noon in Las Vegas, so I usually read sexy writing, so it's a little bit early for sexiness, but I'll give it a shot. So I'll read a few poems I wrote a year or so ago, and then maybe one new one or so recently. This one is called Paint Brushes. I long for you in between throes of vacancy. Solitude has my neck by the knife of its wild desolation. I am here because you have called my name from a dark place called paintbrushes. I call you vultures because you have been preying on my dead heart. We both know woes at their earliest stage of infancy are beauty dressed like fucked up patterns of euphoria. We both know when paintbrushes dry, they lose their swiftness, their instantaneous mobility. They are paralyzed from the waist down. The canvases are forced to sob from stupor, blankness, and emptiness. The wingspan of their time spent carnally on the bed sheets of fresh colors have been lacerated. Their essence is still moist with wetness and linseed oil. I want you to call my name frequently by pushing your impotent paintbrush through the slit of my blouse's buttonhole. Even devoid of moisture, I like to feel your dryness brushing against my awoken clitoris. Desiccant knowledge is knowing when to high wind in an open desert, not to know, not to allow it to travel wide and far without an escort. Not irrigated desire is waterless. Yes, and parched and left to bury itself in its own thirst. I love it when two dry brushes rub against each other, rubbing terribly like wind, like dry wind against dry bark. Because when there is desire, there is much wanted abrasion. Adequate desire is knowing when not to stop, even when scorched. This is how the desert spends its long life in the desert. This is how dead bed lesbians should fuck when they run out of carnal luck. And the second poem I'm going to read is called, I have these pages and I didn't staple them properly, so they're over the world, they're over everywhere. The next one I'm reading is called The Exit Sign of Death. All my dreams are fading away, all of my sapphic desire awoken, as if to be born is to be stillborn, when they should all be asleep at the corridor of death. The noises of life fade away, my rabid heart rate. What I learned from this life, I can't unlearn or learn in the next. The feminine soul may or may not have a mate. Dying is not an art, dear Sophia Plath. It is time way of measuring the cosmos to nanosecond by nanosecond of her human body. I want to ask her, do you want to go on a date with me in the afterlife? The morning glories will be dead. So are the poppies and the black-eyed Susans and the hyssopes and the sea thrips and the fennel bulbs. There won't be any bathroom stalls, which is nice. And you'll be there, devoid of your feminine ephemerality, like a red rose, tall and poised and luminescent in your post-due candor. And I think it's time for a rose to have its own bell curve to the hourglass of its own intimacy. Inside a vase for that rose to smell and be with another rose, and for that rose to feel its own dew through a kiss of manic proximity, and this tenderness is finite. because it is love in the afterlife after all. That is the only time when you can truly find your immortal beloved. Don't you think that's how God designed things with a soul to be? There's this poem that I want to read to you, and I can't seem to find it. I'm going to try to read you this one. It's short, and it's called S&P. What putting on condoms for men, cutting nails for dykes. I hope I can find this poem for you. Okay, since I can't find it, I'll read you this poem called A Sea. I want to be the kind of God that gives God to God. I want to be a kettle that won't hiss even when you ignite its ass on fire for a very long time. Hours and hours of volcanic muscle moving beneath strata of yearning. I am on her stomach again after a night spent with a pre-radiate migraine. A sea has a C in it twice. When asked how well I slept, she slept like a log, and I a bog. And yet I hear her breath falling into a well of an old song. I'm here again, where the mountain doesn't move, and light is the kind of luck that is incapable of embracing the monsoon. In her country, the cock would tell when the drunken fisherman could go out to sea, when there is fish again on the plate. Her country was first colonized by the French, then the British. That's a love for tea and Audre Lorde's zombies. Soon all the graveyards would be buried underneath the sea, from the capitalists stealing sand to build new houses that don't look like Scotland. I'm trying to steal something from yesterday's bank account of impropriety, heated steam from pedestrian's mouth, uncast paychecks of melancholy, unwanted scent from an Uber car. And I realized I don't want to be a bank robber in this lifetime. Even if I did steal someone's heart, I don't want to buy a new wallet to hide that heart in. I just want a plate of raw scallop and monkfish on a bed of fish sauce, chives and mint leaves, and a hint of cilantro. Why would you rob something when the bank account inside your small heart could pay for all of it? Why would you steal a woman's heart when she has already given it to you? Okay, I'm gonna read this poem. And it's called A Video of Your Pre-Lunch Tour. Your unwashed hair is no monsoon as I stroke like a dustpan to sweep light into your mouth. I always think there is something militant about not being able to touch you across the room from America. And from what strength will your lipstick make available, which I intangibly can't take forward? Tonight we teach each other's, tonight we each take turns teaching each other how to nail the coffin into an idea, how to connect mother destiny with the sea of karmic particles, how to lower my torso for the angle which could be your gaze, or hip, or Callinistic strips. Had I seen you take that grat, give you that your eyes that much deserved bath of imperial expansion, such orange and gold horizon, which matches all your hair across the four quadrants of my desire. My face does not mismatch an empty door for free will, won't confuse you waking up in the morning for a spoon of olive oil. How terrible is my tea kettle for refusing to take a reflection as a sign of genuflection, for giving your thighs a small detour of my lower torso. Take your full breath into my hands and watch my tongue wave hello to your earlobe like a repossessed handkerchief from the fragile mouth of a townhouse. Um, and I guess I can read one more poem before I read Wu Tsao's work. It's one of my favorite, actually it's my favorite poem, so I should at least read it. And it's called Sepha. Thank you everyone for listening. So here's the last poem. Sepha, I hushed the etymology of your fingers by tasting the eternal night around the tips. Fennel immolates your desire into my broth. I am clavicle, not vulture, cleaving your aniseed for pain. I hushed the wildness near your basin ship cavalcade. You elevate in your throes of ardors, and I bend to meet your feminine furniture, legs and all as a reference for diptyque and sibility. If your tongue is one type of transitive verb, will my lips be able to take yours as direct object for complication of time? My left cheek seeks in sequence the grammar of your breath, the translucent material of your fugaciousness as you lean from syntax into chopsticks. If time identifies herself as a pansexual and you agree to be the notes on my laptop, if my desire is binary and yours has urinary tract infection, won't it be cruel if I suggest we all sleep together, muscles and all, on a bed of salt and oysters? Won't it be fun for bivalves to be bisexual, to open a Vietnamese restaurant for lesbians called Supper? Thank you. So I guess I will read Wu Tsao's card and a poem by her. But in the card, I'll read this 2 lines. I have closed the double doors. In what corner of the heavens is she? So this is what the back of the card says. Hope you will collect these. They're awesome. I always feel like I'm a gambler, and but I think it's like gambling with history. I think like historical history with lesbians. According to these scant facts provided by her translators, Kenneth Reck Roth and Ling Chung, in Women Poets of China, New Directions, 1972, Wu Tsao was born around 1800, was unhappily married, wrote erotic poems to courtiers, had woman friends and lovers, and spent her last year in seclusion as a Taoist priestess. She was popular in her lifetime, and her songs were sung all over China. Her style is colloquial and fluent, and unlike most Chinese women poets, she dealt with a wide range of subjects. She's one of the great lesbian poets of all times, perhaps not as great as Sappho, but certainly greater than any modern ones. Alex North describes her poems as unashamed lyric passages full of the sweetness of yearning, and adds, given the quality of Wu Tsao's work and her history, it is disturbing to find that her name rarely appears in Western profiles of poets, and she is not included in literary discussions of the lesbian poetic tradition. So I'm so happy to read her poem because here we are including her in our lesbian poetic modern tradition. So let me read this poem from her. And it's from the quote, I have closed the double doors. In what corners of heaven is she? I have closed the double doors, and what corners of heaven is she, a horizontal flute beyond the red walls, blown as gently as the breeze. Blows the willow floss in the lingering glow of the sunset. The roosting crows ignore my melancholy. Once again, I languishedly get out of bed. After I burn incense, I loiter on the jewel staircase. I want to read another poem by her. It feels, that one is a little short. I regretted the wasted year, sick, afraid of the cold, afraid of the heat, while the beautiful days went by, constantly disturbed by the changing weather. I lose track of the flowing light that washes us away. Who moved the burning bridges on my inlaid tapestry? I realize of the 25 strings, 21 are gone. Anyway, thank you for giving me an opportunity to read her work with you and to share my own work with you as well.
Thank you. If you want to unmute yourself and we can give a rousing round of clapping and send the love to V in Las Vegas.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, V. And boy, you've got the luck of the cards in you, obviously.
I do, don't I? I'm in Vegas, the perfect place to gamble my heart.
Perfect place for the cards.
Yeah, for the cards.
Thank you for your beautiful sapphicry today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Just prismatic, beautiful poetry. And also thank you for lifting the voice of Wu Tsao today for all of us. Well, folks, you are listening to the Collectibles, the Lesbian Trading Card reading series, sponsored by Headmistress Press. I'm your host, Sandy Yanone, and I want to encourage you, if you too would like to own your own set of trading cards, there's many sets, and you can find them at Headmistress Press, along with just some exquisite, exquisite books of poetry. So please support the press today and nurture yourself and the love by getting your own set of trading cards. As I like to say, they are nostalgic. I used to collect Charlie's Angels, the Brady Bunch, and the Partridge Family myself. They're nostalgic, but they're radical. Well, it is wonderful to follow V's reading with an array of also wonderful poets who are going to be joining us in today's open mic. I will be introducing our 5 poets who will be reading in the order that I share their biographies with you. First is Ann Tweedy. Ann Tweedy's book, The Body's Alphabet from Headmistress Press, won the Bisexual Book Award in Poetry from the Bi Writers Association. Her book has appeared in Clackamas Literary Review, Rattle, Literary Mama, and elsewhere. She specializes in federal law relating to Native tribes and recently moved to South Dakota from Washington State to join the faculty at the University of South Dakota School of Law. How fortunate is that institution to have you, is what I would like to say. Next will be Colleen McKee, who writes poetry, memoir, and fiction. Colleen is the author of Routine Bloodwork from Headmistress Press and other publications, including The Kingdom of Roly-Polies, maybe my favorite title of all, 9 Kinds of Wrong, and My Hot Little Tomato, or Tomato. depending on how you pronounce it. She co-edited with Amanda Steibel, Are We Feeling Better Yet? Women Speak About Healthcare in America. Colleen writes most of her poems on public transportation. Gail Morrison is a poet and writer who nests in Portland, Oregon, and is the author of Chiaroscuro Kisses from Headmistress Press. She was raised by indifferent wolves and wet nursed by poetry, whose savage, urgent milk has sustained her over these last 30 years. She's feathered her nest with the contributor copies of hundreds of magazines, a dozen anthologies, and a fistful of writing awards. Samantha Pious is a multilingual translator, poet, and medievalist. Her unique translation of poems by Renee Vivian, A Crown of Violets, Selected Poems of Renee Vivian, was a finalist for Headmistress Press's Charlotte Mew Prize. Her poems and verse translations have appeared in Adrian, the Berkeley Poetry Review, the Gay and Lesbian Review, Lavender Review, Lunch Ticket, and other literary journals. And we'll close our open mic today with Gail Thomas, whose most recent book is Odd Mercy, which was selected by Ellen Bass for Headmistress Press's Charlotte Mew Prize. Her previous books include No Simple Wilderness, Finding the Bear, and Waving Back, which was named a Massachusetts Center for the Books Must Read. Her poems have been widely published in journals and anthologies. Gail lives with her wife in Northampton, Massachusetts. What a great place to be able to spend the pandemic. Northampton. I'd go there any day of the week. Anyway, welcome to our open mic poets, and take it away, Ann.
Thank you, Sandy. And I'm so excited to be here and thankful to Risa and Mary as well. I thought I'd read one poem from my Headmistress book, The Body's Alphabet, which is about a mothering type of poem, and then read a relationship poem. So this one is called Beholden. He exited my body and immediately knew what he wanted to do. One nipple cracked and bled. The other became tender as sunburn. He took hour-long breaks, but it felt constant to me. In the hospital, lactation specialists hovered, offered nipple protectors, hydrogel pads, recommended formula supplements, rest for my damaged breast. I slathered on wool wax, ruined shirts with nipple range grease spots. Months later, when skin began to heal, his mouth became a strange tickle. Once in those early months, I took a plane cross-country and stowed my pump in checked baggage. Before the flight was done, my breasts had become baseballs, ached like they might explode. I remember pained small talk with the taxi driver en route to the hotel, squelching tears during check-in. Somewhere around 6 months, he started to toy with me, pulling and turning one nipple while he sucked the other. At 8 months, he screamed at the ensconcing of the nursing cover. I became a reluctant exhibitionist. Men in restaurants stared. A woman glared unabashedly. Now he's almost 3. I unsnap my bra, push him on, and try not to see myself from others' eyes. To some, I'm all body, exactly what I never wanted to be. He strokes my unused breast like a lover, kneads my belly contemplatively. His fingers search out the left side's mole, which he rubs like a rabbit's foot. Sometimes I try to stop him. Others, I wonder if I'll ever be loved this much again. I'll jump into an instant now. And this is in a Minnesota writers, because I used to live in Minnesota, anthology called Queer Voices. An instant. After I came home from visiting you, I didn't want to dry clean the pink rayon dress I wore when we walked to breakfast that last day through July hot San Antonio streets. The armpit sweat was mine. Anything of you on the dress, maybe fragments of dry skin, would have been microscopic. But it carried the memory of how you sat on my lap, looked hard into my eyes for a few moments before we walked outside. Even the blister I got on my little toe from wearing the wrong shoes was a welcome reminder. It was months before I dry cleaned the dress, and I haven't worn it since, although I will, and that wearing will affect a small erasure, the way that living erases the past. And dying seems no better because the past must float up like a cloud and disperse upon death. Certainly, there's no earthly museum for the pasts of dead people, and it's hard to imagine them trapped in one in the underworld, however much some of us might wish for that. Now, when I think of you, I try to concentrate on how you would repeat over and over the short time we saw each other, as though I didn't understand the risks I contemplated. I remember how I said, I know, only to pick up the phone on the next call and hear again how the 4 days were in effect a weekend, that I didn't know how I would feel if we were in a relationship. I know, I'd recite the same facts back to you to no effect. My comfort with the blankness of my future, my willingness to jump blindfolded into it, somehow translates into my being trapped on a walk among stately stucco houses, the sun washing us, the trees multiplying each soft breeze, my wince at the sharp bark of the fence chihuahua, instantly bringing your arm around me. Thank you.
Do you want me to just go? Sorry. I'm sorry. Should I just begin reading? I guess I will. Sorry. I got a little bit confused there about the format. Thank you, Ann and V, for marvelous readings. And thank you, Risa and Mary for hosting this, and the tech support guy. Anyway, so I'm reading from my book, Routine Blood Work, that was published just in time for the quarantine and just in time for all my book launches and events to be canceled or postponed. But at least I'm able to read this to you today. I am reading from the last poem in the book, which is called Humans Suck, or the Gospel of Rat Fad. This poem takes place in St. Louis, where I'm from, and Oakland, where I live now. And the friend in this poem is a transgendered person. I guess that's all I'll say to begin. So, Humans Suck, or the Gospel of Rat Fab. I see the words "forgive yourself" stenciled 3 times on my street, 40th Street, on the way to the train. I tap them lightly with my cane each morning, hit them heavy limping home at dusk. Forgive yourself flashes in the streetlights in the rain, reflected in the junction box on the corner of Martin Luther King. Someone stenciled "Humans Suck" a few times on 40th, probably someone else. Humans Suck is smudged, glopped in what looks to be blistering tar, bubbled up from some Oakland hellmouth. I like the two together. Forgive yourself because you're human. Humans suck. Forgive yourself is faded. Humans suck more steadfast despite the angry smear. But I see forgive burnished on the sidewalk, faint as old nickels and pennies. It shows up better in the rain. I see the words I need at my feet. 2. This isn't the first time. 9 years ago, just before I left St. Louis, someone wrote, "Forgive yourself," small, brushed green on a gutter on South Grand, around the corner from where we lived. First saw it one frigid dawn on the way to the bus. It was a few months after my best friend killed himself. All through the ice, the long thaw, the brief spring, "Forgive yourself" multiplied, the words bigger, blacker, sprayed at eye level on stolid brick buildings along South Grand. I still saw my sweetheart's sexy ghost strutting down Grand in striped bell-bottoms, smoking and giving me the stink eye, sometimes just sticking out his tongue. One summer dusk looming over the highway, 7 stories up and 10 feet tall, forgive yourself, outlined in gold, bold on a gutted warehouse, a swaying thing of splinters, more wind than wood, teetering over the Mississippi River. Who risked their lives to write it? Every time I see these words, small or monumental, I do forgive myself, if only for that moment, and bless the ones who needed to write it and did. I can walk these cracked and crumbling cities, knowing someone is blessing us all, every wretched one of us, no matter what we've done or failed to do. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Colleen. So I am going to read a poem. Can you hear me all? Okay, great. So I'm going to read a poem called For Ann that I wrote for Ann Tweedy actually it was written at an open mic poetry reading thing that we attended together. So this seems perfectly appropriate. Also, though, it is about my love for my fellow lesbian writers. So it is for all of you today, in spite of its name, For Ann, who is its inspiration, and always my inspiration. For Ann, for now, for your poetry that comes forth shouting, swollen as stars. Throw down a word or two, still wet with ink and baby's breath, milk, sweet and demanding. Throw down a line or two, a promise of truest blue objectively. You and I are friends, but for 2 decades our poems have been sneaking behind our backs, fucking in parked cars and literary journals. Their alphabet bodies scissoring, bruising each other with allegories, kisses and cadence, patient as metal and as unyielding. Slutty poems, still scissoring with the ferocity of ransom notes, letters thrown willy-nilly silly rhymes. We poets, we write our will upon the readers in hobo code. Beware of dogs and dogmas and ungenerous hearts. Here is food for any hunger. There, a warm bath and a bed, and one road up a policeman's fist. Readers write their will on the poems as well. My lost lover is another sister. My revolution is cast as his religion, unholy transubstantiation. But now we see how the poems write each other, how limericks and love letters, they write roadmaps and recipes, how they lock lips and legs in the margins of what we thought we were saying. So throw down the books that bind us together and keep us apart, and unmake me with poetry.
Hi, that was a great reading, GL. And thank you so much to Vicky now and to the organizers and to all the other readers. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So this one is called Fairy Tale. At first I wanted to be a princess, but I didn't know how to bake bread or clean house, and I never could take care of children. Briefly, I considered being a hero, but I was neither strong nor generous, and the horses I rode turned to ashes in the morning. I tried to learn witchcraft, but the slow wisdom of forests eluded me. The coven made it clear I was not one of them. Now I am building a tower, book by book. Sometimes I disguise myself as a minstrel or merchant's wife and sing dawn songs at the fish market where a merwoman waits for the aquarium keepers to toss her a bit of herring. Soon I will place one last volume above the watch room, climb the spiral stair, and set the lantern alight. Then we will shatter our cage and sail into the velvet night. And the next one is Midnight at the Musée d'Orsay, which is actually a museum for the pasts of dead artists, at least. Okay. On the northern wall of the Great Hall, the gilt clock sounds 12 chimes. A bronze lion flexes, stretches his jaws in a silent roar or yawn, and leaps from his pedestal to prowl the underground corridors and restrooms. If next morning one of the security guards boasts of intruding gangs, shows off the scratch marks on his bandaged arm, the others will shrug, chalk it up to drugs, and the boss will quietly arrange for his transfer to the Hôtel des Invalides. Meanwhile, the busts of Virgil and Dante continue their endless debate. A curve of light skims past the statue of a shepherd girl who leaps to her feet in search of sword and banner to become Joan of Arc. The clock slows. Sappho stands, brushing dust from her lyre, and in an instant she and the naked Eurydice have joined hands and run upstairs toward a sinuous Art Nouveau bed frame, where one of the curators has thoughtfully installed a sturdy mattress. Lady Liberty, night watchwoman, take off your robe and crown, for once lay down that blessed ledger book, and, torch raised higher than the morning sun, prolong the night. And I think that's it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gail, and thank you so much to all the readers. It's wonderful to hear all of your voices. So in the pandemic, the place that I feel the most comfortable is in the woods. So I'm going to take you all on a hike with me and read one very, very new poem. Trail of Roots. Maybe I must forget what I know about walking to hike this trail of roots with my dog, who is thrilled to be free. Not a time for ambling, not Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, where one walks untethered, though slice of sky beyond the canopy of trees stares like the milky blue eye of a newborn. Today, only eyes focused on feet, what lies beneath and ahead, tangled web of roots like bruised veins coursing at every angle, wet stones furred with moss, thick matted leaves layered with 1,000 years of dead news, interrupted by fleshy scarlet mushrooms, sunken critter holes, crisscrossed mess of twigs next to waist-high ferns. In China, children wear brightly painted wings to keep 6 feet of distance in school. I lift each foot high enough to avoid snagging, set them down on spongy ground, damp pine needles, slanted rock, then do it again to keep moving forward. What bird is making that sawing noise? Or is it a porcupine high in an oak, ready to drop a gnawed branch to feed its young with no warning? Years when I used my body and skin to feed my children, when the father denied them, like a blind alley with no heat and ragged clothes, they walk inside me. Forward, follow the blue blaze on the next tree, lift up the overhanging branch before it slaps my face, then the uphill stretch and downhill tumble of pebbles, more and more up and down until calves and toes cramp. Still miles to go as I begin to stumble, heavy legs unable to lift high enough. Walking home from a pride march, pushing a stroller, holding my other child's hand. Oh, wait a minute. Walking home from a pride march, pushing a stroller, holding my other child's hand, a car full of red-faced men scream at us. As I weed our garden, a teenage neighbor spits on the ground next to us, the thick clot announcing that even my body can't protect them. Reprieve, a slatted bridge of wet boards spread across shallow muck, thick with sedge, where the dog's desire to tramp is met, and I anticipate the lake, waiting to bathe her muddy legs. Orange newt skitters across a decaying stump, sawdust piled around its base, home for larvae and beetles. Ahead, a bed of ferns flank the trail. I tear a wide frond and begin a rhythmic swatting, parting a swarm of gnats. Bullies on the school bus. You're dykes, just like your mother. The lovers who came and left, distraction and guilt like borers chew holes in my heart. Blocking the path, a storm-struck white pine stretches out like a corpse. I hoist myself over its rough bulk, lift one leg, balance, then straddle before lowering the other to solid ground. Flecks of pine wings rain down, the souls of dark-skinned boys, child soldiers, girl brides, babies lost at the border, unmasked and innocent. The bounding dog comes back to check, then runs ahead again, nose to the ground, on the scent of something I cannot see. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Everyone, if you would care to unmute yourselves so we can give some love to our open mic readers. That was just extraordinary. Wow.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I just have a few closing remarks, and then we can stay and chat with each other if you care to, anyone who's here on the call or on the Zoom room. So I want to say thank you again to our open mic readers. We heard from Ann Tweedy, Colleen McKee, Gail Morrison, and I'm looking, Samantha Pious, and Gail Thomas. And we started with our featured reader, card number 49, if you're collecting the series, as I am, Vicky Now, who also read from Wu Tsao. You have been here with us today for the Collectibles, the Lesbian trading card reading series. You too can own your own set of trading cards by going to Headmistress. And I want to encourage you to be sure to join us next month on Saturday, September 19th. Marty McConnell, card number 47, will be sharing the work of Adrienne Rich, card number 30. That's Saturday, September 19th. Again, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to our hosts, Headmistress Press, and to our tech support, Don Krieger. I'm Sandy Yanone, your host today. Take very good care, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Keep collecting your words and keep collecting those cards. We'll see you again in September. Yay, everybody. Great job.